share some experiences with probably nobody. So just background there, just blasted 5 grams APE in the Lemtech, for those who know. You know, Songgram 2026. Went into it. Honestly, I didn't think I was in the right mood. You know, been dealing with bereavement and all that personal stuff again. Aren't we all? Right? And all that stuff. But yeah, so blasted. Not an empty stomach. I got out for Sizzler, hit the salad bar, and some food for then. So it wasn't a completely empty stomach, but maybe 10 hours later, 6 hours later, all that's in my stomach is the 5 grams. And no idea who that is, but it seemed very friendly. 5 grams and lemon juice. And so lots of different experiences, everything from, you know, the normal psychedelic wonderment of seeing, you know, shapes and patterns and things. Very, very intense. But yeah, when I went back to my room and I was in the dark and I was just trying to get at one with my thoughts, that's when it became really difficult. I don't know even what I mean. Such a stupid, weird thing to say, but alright, first of all, you know, thoughts and feelings in a psychedelic state become indistinguishable. So you can feel that you know things. You have this sort of connection or knowledge, and it's, you know, if you try to articulate that in thought, you say, well, I just had an awareness that I was. So it's like, okay, your brain just suddenly decides that it understands things. But I got to a point, you know, I mean, I guess in a Schrodinger's cat kind of way. Still can't get over the futuristic cars. You know, there's the caught in between. So, yeah, thought without input. If there's going to be a consciousness pre-existing, coexisting, being existence itself, right? And our understanding of everything would imply that from the absolute total oblivion of no consciousness to consciousness requires an input, right? And so if you're talking about like AIs or any kind of intelligence, I don't know why I said AIs, but consciousness in general, and how it spawns, this is something supposedly each one of us has gone through. But then sort of look at consciousness like, I like to think I'm the same person I've always been, and I certainly try to identify with a certain, you know, trends or, yeah, I'm very shallow, aren't I? I mean, you know, I like to think of myself as determined or loyal or, you know, again, these words are barbed. Determined, oh shit, bro. Determined is stubborn, you know. Positive is negative, negative is positive. Jeez, that guy's bumpers. Ooh. Songgram, the crazies are out. Alright, but where was I? Yeah, just, you know, in the absence of input, what is thought, what is consciousness, right? Like, that moment of beginning of consciousness, let's say. And I think what happens to us as human beings is that rather than we become conscious, like a switch flicking on, we sort of, it grows into us, sort of, eased in. You're just sort of a kid. You're not really even conscious of self in any real or different way. Most of that happens a bit later, I think. Excuse me. Anywho, thought without input, right? The original thought, the original consciousness. The before being able to say things like me or you or okay, before a time. Like you can't even do time, right? Consciousness without time. Consciousness before measurement. Consciousness before perspective. How can you do that? There can't be consciousness without something to be conscious of. You say conscious of yourself requires knowledge of self, pre-existing all of those things. So I think consciousness sort of, instead of being formed in individuals, I think it sort of grows into people. Some people more than others, to be truly enlightened. And I'm not claiming that in my current state of mind I am truly enlightened, because I don't even remember or know what that means, but I have quite recently, yes, felt like I touched the experience of experience itself, whatever the hell that means. The most quintessentially conscious, the most perfectly tuned in, and it was in the absence of absolutely everything. What the fuck? So even the sentence I experienced I didn't experience it. It experienced me, or we experienced, can't words. But, and again, you gotta be careful. Psychedelics, a lot of people throwing out thoughts and feelings, which could be deeper truths, non-truths. The state I was in last night, all and nothing at all, absolute, total enigma, borderless, not even I was everything or everything was me, not even that. Like, if it's impossible, because it is impossible, but the nothing within the nothing from which the something always was, at nothing, and people think that's a sad thing, the nothingness. But in order for consciousness, there had to be exist and not exist. Two states. Consciousness requires something to be conscious of. And even if you hide in the fact, you say, oh, you're conscious of yourself, then you're defining yourself as external to what? Right? So when you lose the boundaries of self, which I think is a regular experience for people on psychedelics, certainly a regular experience for me, this was something else. Not only did I transcend all the boundaries, but I got into God, Pandora's box of God. The eternal question. People talk about epiphanies and sensations of this is something else, Again, you can be very careful with language. People say, oh, I touched God and God touched me. It meant, first of all, and this is something I really came to last night, which probably most Christians already knew, but it really felt for me last night was, in that state of mind, which I think I kind of did achieve for a moment, where there was nothing but my own consciousness in the most purest form. So I mentioned Schrodinger's cat 30 minutes ago, or however long ago it was, 10 minutes ago, because it came to my mind. My existence, all thoughts and, call it neuron firing, decisions, ideas, personality, free will, spirit, choice, soul, whatever you want to call it, got distilled down to, well, okay, so you're making everything into two choices. It's like in physics, it's either A or it's B, right? The old quantum enigma and all the rest of it. It's either a matter or a frequency. It can't be both. This is measured, right? Well, I got down to that point in my mind, whatever that means. And again, probably just a feeling. I'm not going to say anything very sure. It could be exciting mathematically or physically or anything else, but perhaps personally or psychologically or psychedelically, there might be some interest. So it came down to this X and Y choice. And it feels like, but even that is a construction beyond just consciousness, because now you're already creating an X and a Y. Who's creating that boundary? Who's setting the X and the Y? Who's outside of the self to do so? And that, I think, is what you call wrestling with God. Because it just kept occurring in the most profound sense. It was exhausting, truly exhausting, exhilarating at times, but mostly really, really exhausting. Like I wanted to stop, where I just couldn't get my mind out of anything other than, instead of making these choices of consciously perceiving, I didn't. I don't even know what that means. It's, again, mind can do, perhaps it's just, oh dude, you just took a bunch of drugs and now your mind is all fucked up. Okay, maybe. And even if that were the case, look at bro's well fed. Even if that were the case. Schrodinger's cat, Schrodinger's Salter here. I just decided, okay, instead of my consciousness going A or B, I won't have A or B or outside or anything. I'm like, I know what that means. So maybe it's just me and my crazy brain, how my brain works, but I think what I just experienced was a moment of complete and total just consciousness. And all that was in that black box of indecision, where you just don't even choose whether you want to perceive or not, somehow I was able to perceive that from the outside. So what I'm describing is that as my mind is literally, and I've experienced this before, I'm sure many have, is going to sleep, right? Losing consciousness, I am at the same time able to sidestep that and be completely and totally consciously watching myself in an unconscious state. Completely able to. Now, I don't know what that means, if that means anything. probably doesn't. It probably just means there's a West Cork boy out in the fields, and he's gone wild, right? But this West Cork boy is always out in the field, and I am fairly wild at times, okay? But what I'd be doing in the field is sitting on a mound. I'd be sitting on a mound like this, you see. A nice bit of stairs, but tonight I won't be able to see anything there, I suppose. What the heck? Anyways, a bit of trees, a bit of nature, a bit of humans, I'm assuming. Yeah. In that absolute absence of input, my brain, my mind, my consciousness was able to see itself. And that, if I'm telling the truth, is different for me. For other people it might mean, might not mean much. I mean, I know people all the time, it's supposed to be a common experience, right? DMT or mushrooms, and they get to meet the machine elves and the things in between and all these different entities, and all I ever had was a note on the door that said, you're not supposed to be here now. And until tonight, man, oh man, I thought I was conscious. Conscious was me. Yeah, conscious was me. I was conscious. But I was also, that moment of indecision, the analog between the digital nature of just accepting reality or not, perceiving or not perceiving, that first switch of consciousness. To be able to see the unconscious you through the consciousness of something else, so that you can understand what that is. In a moment you can understand that. Now you make a video about it and it's hard to articulate. Now the Greeks called it the phaneron. The idea, everybody has their own universe. And maybe that's true. But another thing that's true is there's only one universe. And corny and cheesy and whatever else you want to call it. I'm bald and it has mosquitoes. And that's how you know it's real. Otherwise, you'd be in heaven. Right? Especially the mosquitoes one. I don't give a fuck about being bald, but Jesus. That's the thing about God energy, isn't it? He don't want you to hold on to that for too long. And this whole not perceiving and just sidestepping your own consciousness, as I'm doing a really bad job of explaining, I think I did, whatever that means. Means that beyond perspective, beyond a choice, even at a bifurcation level of zeros and ones, bytes, or whatever else you want to call it, at that level, there's so much more. Like, the consciousness is being streamed in, and whatever we would even perceive of God, like, And I'm a firm believer in God as the God consciousness and all the rest of it. And whatever that might mean, a constantly evolving and changing opinion of what that might mean. Yep. But I will say this. If you're thinking about other people and sometimes as a psychedelic endeavorer, whatever you want to call me, there's a tendency to you start feeling connected to the universe enough, you start feeling a little bit special. And to be, now I think I know what it is to be God. It's not about being good or bad, right or wrong, decision or indecision. It's about two letters. The first letter is B. Just B. Sometimes just be. You know how good that makes me feel? Anyway, fucking delusion, right? But if you want to go deep, and you're not into the birds chirping on a nice day, 4 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is, and you want to go hard in the paint and feel as exhausted as I did, the only question, instead of perceive or not perceive, would you come down to raw consciousness, doesn't even come to pick this or this, A or B, even choice doesn't even come down to that. There's no choice. There is no choice. Both sides are covered. It's yeah. I don't know. It seemed like that awareness was something that I could touch in moments, and then it would drift away. And I'd be back as me again, going, "Oh, holy crap!" And then I'd go back into purest, rawest. And again, very careful with words here. No one's talking about being God. Well, really, semantics. But experiencing. I've been obsessed recently with the story removed from the Bible, at least the anglicized, canonized Bible, the book of Enoch, the story of Enoch. Right in the middle of that ridiculous passage in the Bible, lists, it seems pointless, like why would they do this? You list off, so-and-so lived almost invariably, almost 1,000 years, right? We're talking, and by the way, Methuselah was Enoch's son, I believe, or something like that. Anyway, so put this in context. It's just a list in the Bible of all these dudes, right? Follow the male line, lived for 900 and something years, had this many sons, died. Next guy lived this many 900 years, almost all banged out 900 years. Very impressive. People say, "Do you believe that or not?" Huh? Believe's a ridiculous word, especially where I've been tonight. Anyway, in the context of all these dudes, all these individuals who lived and died and had their kids, and you're thinking, all right, man, this is, we just got through Genesis, some heavy stuff, some mind-blowing stuff. And now we're going through a list of who lived and who died. And it's exhaustive. You think, like, what is the point in this? There has to be a point. Everything in the Bible had a point. Resting in the middle of a lengthy, long passage is Enoch. Now, the books of Enoch have been removed from the canonized Bible, but there's reference to him anyway. And what I'm referring to now, I think, is in Ezekiel's. Please check that for me. Or don't. I don't really. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, in the midst of all these guys, and it takes very careful point, right? Boringly so, like it's painting a blandest background that it can, just so that it puts a piece of information that might seem insignificant, but so that it stands out. And that is Enoch. Right? Enoch in the middle of these people. Again, I think Methuselah was his son. I can't remember. I mean, they're all related, right? So Enoch, in the middle of all these people who lived, had these kids, died, lived 300 and something years. Straight off the bat, you're thinking, Jesus, man, he didn't get much time. I mean, his son, Methuselah, we know was the longest living. So what's up with Enoch only getting his 300 years? And then, take into another thing, it doesn't say that he died. It says, and the Lord took him. That ain't the same thing as dying. That means, call it God, consciousness, whatever you want to do. Sometimes, and we can ask the question, and I will ask the question and make an endeavor to answer the question, why Enoch? What it says is that God took him. It's not the same as dying. God took him. It's not that his consciousness been gone, flatline, over. No more choice between the A and B. No more perceive, not perceive. He didn't die. God took him in that space, in that moment, between perceive and not perceive. Outside of choice. Stepping as the observer, pure observer. Able to see, the bifurcation of reality. Reality and not reality. Or feel that. I think that's why Enoch was taken. Because I think the sentence, he walked with God, is a long time before God took him, he walked with God. Now what do I mean he walked? What do I mean? What does it mean he walked with God? Well, this is something that a good old dose of mushrooms and a bit of nature and get out and about. Just perceiving. Instead of making a choice, just perceive. Don't decide. Don't play with awareness. Be aware and also completely distant. Consciousness does exist beyond even just the self. Just even that. When you go slice down the middle, there's me. In the absence of all input, self-awareness. Can't do it. That's an imposition of an input. And that's beyond all consciousness of the universe. By definition. Now again, a lot of stuff is feelings and semantics and words and playing on the ideas. And perhaps I'm just a crazy dude taking a bunch of mushrooms. No, Okay, I am a crazy dude. I taking a bunch of mushrooms. Okay? Let me taking. Let me be an advocate for psychedelics. As a man who in my 20s would drink alcohol, that was my thing. Drink about 3 beers. By the way, 3 beers in Thailand. These are 500 ml bottles, so it's a pint and a half. And it's also double percentage, right? It's like 8-9%, something like that. I don't remember. Leo. That was my drink. I pound 4 of those, 5 of those maybe. I've done 6 or 7 or 8. I was gonna get sick. And I would do that 2 nights a week. And play video games and hang out with my wife and kids, which was nice, but obviously a shitty lifestyle. And that was beer. Dabbled with nicotine while doing that, and smoked weed. It was about as serious as it gets. Let me share you what an experience on mushrooms is like when you're 47. So I took my dose, I think 8 p.m. today. Had the experiences I just described. Felt like wrestled with just consciousness itself. Okay? It's beamed in and out of dimensions and colors and vibrancies and frequencies and experiences. Some moments out walking around, just nature, wonderful, beautiful, presence. Just existing, experiencing. Okay, I come down from that. I have all these philosophical things I'm still thinking about. And my urge, invariably, after about 5 grams of mushrooms, is to go for a run. And I do about a 2-kilometer run. Then I go back, try and cool down, lay in the pool, and then this is where we pick up the video. Now, video's 30 minutes, so I've been walking around, keeping active. I was running, jogging I should say. I had a bit of sprinting at the end. I would say probably, again, 2 kilometers, I think, something like that. This is after a heavy dose of mushrooms. No sleep, nothing. My drive is to exist. My brain is not craving alcohol or nicotine, or I'm not even distracted by choice. So I've been really thinking about this and seeing how far we can take that, and going a little bit maybe old school. Maybe I do the old 40-day fast. I could definitely do with losing a bit of weight. So I'm going to do my best. Research what I need to do. Hope this cat isn't under the impression I'm chasing him. Yeah, he might be. I would never chase you, bruh. Well, it's a pretty nice looking cat. I might chase him. But I'd never catch him, so. Yeah. Anyway. 40-day fast? Yes or no? See ya.